Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes before we get started.
Rachel, I thought at this point you were going to sing the theme to Hawaii 5-0.
That will not be happening unless you do it.
Thank you. Oh, you muted me. I apologize. I was on mute and I was singing the Hawaii 5-0 theme. So.
Oh, let's hear it.
Oh, we just lost 10 attendees. I'm going to stop singing now.
All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. We thank you all for joining. Welcome to today's discussion about reimagining Maximo with IoT and AR solutions. My name is Rachel Freeman. I'm the Marketing and Communication Specialist for Aquitas. I will also be your moderator for today's webinar. So a few quick announcements before we begin. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box or the question box at any point, and we'll get to those at the end. If for some reason we run out of time or can't, we will be sure to follow up with you afterwards. Also, we are recording today's session, so you'll have access to the webinar afterwards. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Ray Michek. Take it away, Ray.
Well, Rachel, I thought you were going to go into a longer description of your background and how you love Aquitas and how you love the Maximo ecosystem, but I guess I just did that. So,
well, you can certainly do that for me if you'd like.
I just did. I just did do that. Hello, everybody. I thought Rachel and I talked about starting off with a poll that said most common COVID phrases. And they were going to be hunkered down, doing our best to survive, no real change for me, or how do I homeschool? Those were the most common ones. But we decided to move past that. I appreciate you guys joining today. One of the things that we're really going to try to do as we go through this presentation is make it a little bit fun and lively. I can't see you guys. If you've ever seen me on stage before, you know, I like to engage and involve the audience. It's a little bit tougher to do that since you guys are all on mute. So we're going to have a little fun and go through a few things here. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we move along. So first, a little bit about myself. That sounds kind of weird to say, but just in case you don't know me, again, my name is Ray Michek. I'm one of the partners at Aquitas Solutions. I'm what's considered a legacy Maximo person. I started working with Maximo back in 1997. Hard to believe it's been 23 years since I joined PSDI or MRO Software, if you might remember that. I stayed with MRO Software through the acquisition of IBM. Yes, when we acquired IBM at the time in 2006. And the last position I held at IBM, again, all Maximo stuff, I was a worldwide sales leader for Maximo and IBM's Smarter Building Solution. That was their first foray, IBM's first foray into IoT solutions or Internet of Things solutions involving Maximo. That sounds a little braggadocious to say worldwide sales leader, but I just wanted to give you some background there. Now, some of you may know me by a couple of the hits that I've had that are floating around the internet. One of them is you may know me by Think Big, Start Small, Act Fast. I'm not sure if anybody's heard that before. It was a big hit. Or Polka Polka Polka. That was really big in Sheboygan. It sold 350 copies. Anybody? No? Rachel, do you know what movie that's from? Polka Polka Polka?
No.
Come on, it's from Home Alone. Everybody knows Polka Polka Polka. Okay, fine.
I don't remember that part.
Well, I'm here to provide, I don't know what I'm here for, other than to talk about reimagining Maximo by simplifying IoT and AR. So, oh, I was supposed to do this screen. See, I had my slides in paper and we had already gone past that. All right, so a little bit about Aquitas, just so that you know a little bit about us. We're a gold certified IBM Maximo partner. Maybe I should say an award-winning Maximo partner. Rachel, what awards have we won recently?
Plant Engineering Product of the Year in 2019, 2 Maximo World Awards last year for Best Data Alignment to Business Processes and Best AI Machine Learning IoT Implementation. And we've also been on the CRN IoT Innovators Award list for the last 2 years in a row.
Yeah, you take a look up there. We're a top 25 global Watson IoT partner 3 years in a row. So we've got a pretty good pedigree. We've got some great customers that we work with. Of course, one of my favorites, I always have to give out a shout out, although it always sounds odd when I say it. My favorite customer is, Rachel?
Ooh, I don't know.
Oh, okay, I'll say it, Tito's. Tito's is one of my favorite customers out of Austin, Texas. Now, I would also say all of my customers are my favorite, but Tito's holds a special place in my heart because of the way they've grown with the solution. And when they started using Maximo, man, did their sales take off. So, okay, so what are you going to learn today? I like this concept of more, don't you, Rachel? More,
yeah.
The Maximo online resource and education something. I think it seems like there should be something more after more, but it almost sounds like a radio station. I didn't let you answer, Rachel, did I? You're supposed to say yes.
Yes, there were a lot of pun opportunities with this.
Yeah, very good.
Acronym.
It's almost like the radio. I like the radio sound to it. Welcome to More FM. It's 5 past the hour here, and we're playing the best of Maximo hits 24 hours a day. By the way, Rachel, did you catch that last session by Chris Winston yesterday? He had some really good stuff out there. I thought that would be kind of good if I could use my radio voice the whole time. I don't think I could do that, but I do like this whole thing about the connecting and providing content. There's a lot of great resources in our Maximo ecosystem. The first thing I want to do is maybe we start off with a quick poll. Can we do that, Rachel? Do you have one queued up?
Yep. Yes.
All right. What is the earliest release of Maximo you've worked on? If you guys could select one of the following, is it 4X, 5X, 6X, 7X? And maybe you just stumbled onto this webinar by mistake and you're going, what is Maximo? If you guys could respond, that would be great. Wow, we've got some seasoned people out there. There's 50% of the group started working on Maximo back on the 4X days. That, man, that's great. Some newbies out there, 26. And we've got a couple people that asked, what is Maximo? Now, I am thinking that perhaps maybe they're just joking around with us, Rachel. I'm not sure. Can you give us the results there?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and close and share the results.
All right. So there you go. That 9% I'm a little bit concerned about. I think they're messing with us, is my opinion. So it's great to have this kind of background in terms of people who know Maximo. Again, it just shows the longevity of the ecosystem, if you will. And, I like to think of this as more, it's appropriate because you can close that poll now if you can. So there you go, thank you. Is that with the Maximo users, I think they've always been, and maintenance departments in general have always had to deal with this kind of feeling of getting more with less. One example, I remember when I first came on board with PSDI and MRO software, one of the Maximo customers was Caesar's Palace back in the day. I remember visiting them in '97 and going on site, and they had just finished construction of adding 2 towers. Now, if you've ever been out to Caesar's Palace now, it's a huge facility, huge complex, and the Maximo administrator out there was great. He had gone the hierarchies down to a room. He was tracking coffee pots and TVs into a room, and he was talking about that these addition of the 2 towers, he asked me a question. Do you know how many additional resources I got to manage these 2 towers? And there was hundreds of rooms that were added into that facility. And you know how many resources he got, Rachel? That's right.
How many?
you got to be a little bit quicker now. Come on. He got none. So again, it's this whole thing around maintenance organizations always having to do more with less. And here we get to do more with more. I don't know if that makes sense. So again, we're going to try to mix it up, keep it engaging. I can't see what you're doing. Sometimes you may get distracted, be looking at something else. Easy to do. Since we're not on a Zoom call, I can't see your face. I'm going to pretend that I can see you and try to keep it lively. So again, bear with us as we go through this. Here's what we're going to talk about today. There's really 2 things. One, a general approach that we have when it comes to getting more out of Maximo with IoT solutions, our approach to that, and our philosophy, if you will. And the second thing is we're going to talk about the 3 things that you can do next week and implement right away and get results. I guess 3 things. Well, that's really 4 things now if I talk about 3 things. But anyway, we're going to talk about those 3 projects that you can take on in a relatively easy fashion. So, okay, I'm controlling the diagram here. Well, let's start off with some talking points here about the pressure that we all face, and this kind of sets us up in this kind of, we'll set up our philosophy of how we go about approaching projects. And I'm going to borrow a few lines from one of my favorite leadership authors. His name's Andy Stanley. You may or may not have heard of him. He's out of Atlanta. And one of the things that he often talks about is where there's growth, there is complexity. And let's talk about that for a second. Rachel, when you moved from high school to college, tell me about what it was like.
Well, in high school, I was pretty much told what to do and when to do by everyone, my parents, teachers, and coaches. And then I got to college where I had to pick from literally hundreds of classes, choose a major, decide whether or not I was going to go to office hours on any given day. So there were definitely like a brand new sense of responsibility that I had to learn, having just full control over my schedule. And that was very challenging at first.
So really, yeah, that's a great example, right? So your decision tree became more complex, where it went from here's these actions I've got to do to, well, I got to make decisions. I look at it this way. I've got 4 kids. Well, my wife and I have 4 kids, I should say, and they're now 30, 25, 20, and 18. So I got a 12-year span from the youngest to the oldest. And the one thing I learned about having kids, which was interesting, you parents out there probably can relate, especially if you've got multiples, right? That first kid is not easy, but it's at least you've got, I'm going to use a football analogy here, is you can have double coverage on that kid, right? 2 parents to a kid, you're managing. That second one comes along, and you go into, in football, what they call man-to-man coverage, right? One kid per parent. When you get to that 3rd kid, it starts getting a little bit more complex, and you got to go to a zone type coverage, right? And then on the 4th one, we just realized, oh man, somebody's always going to be open, unfortunately. And the managing of 4 kids is much more complex. I was telling Rachel as we were preparing for this about my daughter. My daughter is 30 years old, and she's followed in our footsteps. She has 4 kids, but get this, they are 4, one just turned 4, 4, 3, 2, and almost 1. So you imagine that process that takes place. I had a chance to watch her get them ready for school one day, and man, is that a complex type environment that she had to go through. You get them in the van, one's missing a shoe, another one's shirt's inside out, the other one's got cereal still stuck to his cheek and things like that. I mean, it becomes more complex all the way around. I even think about when I joined PSDI, we had like 300 people. And then when IBM bought us, we were right at 900 people. And then we went to a company that had over 400,000 people. things are and were complex. Decisions that had to be made were complex. Now, for you 4Xers out there, those people who know Maximo at 4X, you remember you could put that on really a PC. You could do all the modules. It was self-contained. You'd have SQL-based and easy to manage. And as Maximo grew, the complexity of it grew. The technology grew within inside it. The functionality grew. You know, it went from a few modules to 100 modules, which is great because it added such more capability, but it also meant it was more complex in terms of how you managed it. In your situation out there, in your facility or plant, you probably have seen the same thing if you've been in your facility long enough, right? As you've grown, you think about the asset change over the past 10 years, how that's changed, right? The complexity of those assets, whether it's a facility or a manufacturing plant. And then you add on to that these new complex assets. The availability of information is more voluminous. Is that a word, Rachel? Voluminous?
Voluminous?
Voluminous, yes. And not to be confused with luminous. And the information is, you have more of it, and it's even more complex. Okay, let's do a poll. Let's do another poll, Rachel, and let's find out about complexity. In the last 5 years, do you feel that maintenance requirements, tasks, and responsibilities have gotten more complex, less complex, or stayed the same? Wow, right now it's 100%. That was quick. People answered. They must know about the prizes. If we only could see everybody, we could award prizes. All right. Oh, less complex. That's good. Stayed the same. All right. Stayed the same. I'm reading these off like you guys can see them, but you can't see the answers. I'm sorry. I'm talking to myself. This is the value of having people in front of you, because then you're more aware of what you're doing. Okay, let's share the poll.
All right, sharing results.
All right, so people agree. Things have gotten more complex. Few have gotten less complex. I'm not sure. Maybe you changed facilities or moved to a different plant, or went from a bigger organization. Like when I went from IBM and the decision-making process there to Aquitas, boy, that decision-making process really slimmed down quite a bit. And some have stayed the same. So, okay, you can remove that poll. That would be fine if you could. All right. The point of all of this is that complexity is unavoidable. Either because we grow in volume, we grow in maturity. Again, Rachel's a good example of that, not the maturity part, but she went from high school to college. It's a maturation process. As you learn more and become knowledgeable, you elevate yourself, and complexity takes place. You're more aware of what's available out there. So the question is, what can we do about it? Rachel, what can we do about it? You're not supposed to answer that question. I don't have anybody else to ask, so I'm going to pose that question to you. Okay, so one thing is that we need to understand what we're up against as an organization, and know that complexity is the enemy. You know, and you can fill in that blank with just about anything you want. You say complexity is the enemy of productivity. It's the complexity is the enemy of improvement. It's the enemy of decision making. Basically, complexity is the enemy of everything. But what we'd like to do is we approach customers is say that complexity is the enemy of clarity, right? Now, what we find is is that without clarity, it's tough to move forward. Here's an interesting anecdote. I don't know if any of you can relate, but so in years of discussion, going through the process of customers evaluating Maximo, whether they should implement it and procure it, or go through improvements or upgrades. And I remember talking about this in Maximo, where of course I think I was an Austrian doctor on stage talking about this. But the enemy of moving forward, the challenge of moving forward and doing upgrades, is that, you know, there's a challenge in changing their maintenance culture or getting funding or finding for Maximo improvements or the implementation of new technology. That it's a very common thing when talking to customers is that they have challenges with all of these things, right? They're respected in their organizations, but when it comes to trying to get funding for these types of projects, it can be very, very challenging. And what's interesting is how many times that over the years that we've worked with customers and they're about ready to pull the trigger on a upgrade or move forward on purchasing Maximo, and then we get a call that says, you know what, the project just got pushed off because a boiler broke. I think I've had that happen like 3 times over the past 20 years, or a big piece of plant equipment failed and it's taking the budget. And that's probably common in many of the organizations that are online with us now, is that all of a sudden there's something that becomes a higher priority than improving Maximo or using technology, if you will, or implementing new technology. And here's the point of that, is it's in that moment that that boiler breaks or that plant piece of equipment breaks or something happens that takes away from the Maximo budget. It's a very defined path, defined clarity on what needs to be done, and it moves forward quickly. So if you keep that in mind for your Maximo projects, is that when you have clarity, you can move forward because there's a direct correlation to what you're going to get out of it. And so that kind of leads us to this odd thing. You know, I'm not sure if you've ever heard the phrase before, is that if you're the only hot dog stand in town, your hot dogs really don't have to be that good. I'm going to digress and make a statement, because I just feel like I'm getting on a soapbox here for a second, because then I'll explain that, because you're probably wondering, what does that got to do with anything? This is not a hot dog stand story, but it is a Philly cheesesteak story. I was in Philadelphia a few years back, and I remember going through the airport around dinner time through the Delta Concourse. There was one restaurant there that was serving Philly cheesesteaks. Rachel, what is Philly known for?
Cheesesteaks.
Absolutely. So I said, I'm going to get me a cheesesteak, and this is going to be great before I get on my plane. I'm starving. I just come from a client. And I tell you, I wait, about 15 minutes, go through the line, get my cheesesteak, and it was the worst cheesesteak I ever had. In fact, I never wanted to have another. I think I swore off cheesesteaks there for months after that. It didn't have to be that good. Now, okay, what does that got to do with anything, right? What we're talking about? Well, sometimes I think there's a view of maintenance and Maximo use outside of maintenance and reliability organizations. Sometimes outside of maintenance, even reliability might have it, but executives and management, that, you know what, we only have one maintenance organization. They get the job done, they get things fixed, they do a good job. So my reference here is not to say, hey, you maintenance people are not, you're just average. I think that's the view that management has of maintenance, is good enough, right? They don't see all the struggles that the department really has in getting the job done. And this goes back to clarity, right? Execs or people responsible for funding don't always have clarity for what improvements can be made. And when they don't have that clarity, what happens? They don't move forward. So it makes this tough on departments that want to make improvements to their organization. Add to this, if a project does come online, this is kind of your internal thought process, and what one of the basis of what we had this presentation about is, why don't more organizations and departments kind of clamor to do something innovative and make changes in their departments and the way they manage? Well, it's one more project that gets lumped on them. And remember what we said, Rachel, Maximo users are always being asked to do more with less, right? So, why would I want to take on another project and add pain to my already tough life when I can be good enough? And again, I don't mean that in a bad way, but if go to the next Maximo user conference and you'll find people on release 4, 5, 6, 7.1. Why haven't they moved? Now, some may be, in regulated industries and things like that, but it's oftentimes because of lack of clarity of why they should be making that move and what they're going to get out of it. It's not really a fault of theirs. It's just that begs the question is, how do we break that chain? Well, I guess I shouldn't use my slides is not how we break that chain. How do we have clarity about improving Maximo? Well, when we work with customers, look, complex situations often require the simplest answers and response. When you can simplify that response and net out the answer in very easy to understand terms, you have a much better chance of success. So, I'm going to give you 3 questions that are why IoT or Maximo improvement projects fail, or they may not even get started to begin with, right? So if we think about the first one is, what are we doing? Okay, that one most people get. Okay, I'm going to upgrade Maximo. I'm going to connect plant floor sensors to Maximo, something like that. Usually they don't have trouble with that. It's the second one is, why are we doing it? Why are we actually trying to accomplish this? Now, when we're doing consulting assignments, we actually bring it down to that level. When people want to instill a certain process, I love Gina Leonard from our group, who is an awesome consultant. When she's going through, especially around supply chain stuff, she'll ask in a very Southern drawl, well, honey, why do you want to do that? And get the customer and pin that customer down to explaining that answer to make sure that it's valuable. And that leads to the third question. Okay, where does blank fit in? Now, you can put in that word technology. Where does technology fit in? Where does the process fit in? Where does Maximo fit in? Where does the Maximo improvements fit in? Any of those things. I think you answer those 3 questions and you simplify that response, you bring clarity, and then once you have clarity, you can move forward. And that's the type of things that you can take to executives to say, hey, here's what we're doing. Very simple, clear, understanding things. And the why are we doing it should often be in terms of return on investment. What are we going to get out of it? Going to say, well, life is going to be easier for me, gets a yawn. But when you say, it costs us X to do this now, like this, when we do it like this, we save 30% because we are now able to do it this way. If you guys could see how I'm putting my hands out, you'd be impressed with that. Okay. Now, how do you choose what to do? And we're going to talk about IoT for a second. Man, I love Waffle House. It's one of my favorite places to eat. Rachel, you ever been out to eat at a Waffle House?
I have. Great waffles.
All right. Have you ever been to a Waffle House before 11 o'clock at night?
That
is debatable, isn't it?
Not sure I want to answer that one.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, yeah, what's your favorite food at Waffle House?
I'm a purist, just a waffle, chocolate chips.
Yeah, see, I'm a hash brown guy, and I love the simplicity of the menu. There's not many choices that you can have, except when it comes to the hash browns, where then you can very clearly, specifically pick out what you're going to do. And, I like that. And sorry, I didn't mean to get off on this topic on Waffle House, but here's the point is, how do you decide what you want to do? And really, what we're going to talk about over the next couple of things are things that relate to what I call my number one, my raised rule of maintenance number 1, right? So the most cost-effective maintenance is the maintenance that you do not have to do. When it comes to IoT and quick return projects, this is something that you should keep in the forefront of your mind. Remember, this is the why are we doing it? I'm doing this so I eliminate something that I no longer have to do, and then I can redirect resources to do something different, right? If I can find a way to reduce labor requirements within our department, not as a way to get rid of people, but a way to deploy people to the things that are most important, away from unnecessary tasks to necessary tasks, then I achieve something. And typically it's also a cost savings. I mean, most companies out there are dealing with a shortage of labor, skilled tradespeople. They have knowledge walking out the door because they're reaching kind of aging out, if you will. And so what happens is we need the right resource for the right task at the right time, right? Rachel, do you agree with that?
Agreed.
All right. Okay. So, and normally I collectively ask the audience, hey, do you guys agree with that? So what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about 3 kind of quick hit projects that are aimed at fulfilling my rule of maintenance number 1, which is, Rachel, do you remember what my rule is?
The most cost-effective maintenance is the maintenance that you do not have to do.
That's right. So keep that in mind. Think about that. Let's talk about IoT projects that fulfill that rule, that help you to get more out of Maximo. Now, there are obviously more than these 3, but these kind of represent, to me, great examples of what you can do today, cost effectively, get a return with low labor engagement, and then, you know, when low labor engagement means, man, it's not going to be a 3-month project, an 8-month. It could be a week project. It could be, you know, a 2-day project to make changes and add value to your organization. Let's do a poll here, Rachel, about IoT projects.
All right.
In regards to Maximo and IoT, our organization has started an IoT project integrated into Maximo, have a real plan to start an IoT project in int. I don't know what int is, but let's drop the internally, maybe. Is that what we were supposed to say? No plans to start an IoT project integrated in Maximo. Started a project integrated in Maximo, but quit. And what is IoT? Let's leave it up to the polls. Put it out to the poll. All right. Ooh, still got some people. Oh, I'm going to tell you what is IoT. Internet of Things. Maybe it's IoT, Industrial Internet of Things. So for those people who did not know what IoT was. Okay, 10 more seconds. Yeah, we don't have all the votes in. That means they're doing something else. Folks, come on. You can vote. Doesn't track you. All right, got a couple more votes in. Let's go, Rachel. Pull up the results here. All right, so 32% have started a project. That's great. You know, 16% of people have a plan, 32% don't have any plan. A few people have quit, which is interesting. And then there's a few people that, again, are unsure about what IoT is, which we can help you with as well. All right, so that's an interesting backdrop. Let's talk about these 3 things. Let's go. Oh, I'm going to wait. I was waiting on you, Rachel, to advance the slide, but it's me. All right, Rachel, before we did this presentation, did you know who this character was?
No, I did not, unfortunately.
Okay, who is it?
Snagglepuss.
Right, okay. What was your favorite cartoon growing up? This is going to tell our age difference here, right here.
I know. I grew up with SpongeBob.
Okay, you grew up with SpongeBob? Grew up with SpongeBob.
I grew up with SpongeBob, yes.
Yeah, my kids grew up with two of my youngest kids grew up with SpongeBob. I was a big Bugs Bunny fan. This is Hanna-Barbera, I believe, was Snagglepuss. Well, what I'm getting him to introduce this next, the first project, right? Our first IoT project because of his favorite line. Do you remember what his favorite line is now that you've done the research?
Exit stage left.
Exit.
I don't know if I said it in the right way.
Yeah, you did, but you got to say it in an exit stage left. And then he would zoom off. He was usually when he was in trouble, he moved off stage. So what we're going to talk about is the IBM Willard Smart Exit sign. Now, let me tell you, folks, this is one of the best projects and solutions that I've seen come out of the Maximo IoT group, if you will, for a couple of reasons. One, it addresses a real world problem, an issue. It actually can save money. It's packaged from the actual sign, device, and installation. And depending on your situation, it may not be for you, but I'm giving you an example of a quick hit project. So here's the real world problem. Exit signs by regulation by the NFPA. Rachel, what's the NFPA stand for?
National
That's right.
Fire
Protection Association. Perfect. And folks, we're not in the same room, so we're doing this. This banter is what we're separated by 600-700 miles, but this is the kind of banter you get. That's how we work together. Anyway, NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, says that, you know what, an exit sign has to be checked for battery life once per month for 30 seconds and once per year for 90 minutes. That means that someone's got to push a button there for 90 minutes and make sure that exit sign lights or works after the power goes out, because most of these things are obviously connected and wired in. And you have to record the inspection and have it available in case you get audited. And you can be assessed big fines for that. Now, it's interesting, okay, not only is it an NFPA rule, I was talking to Jamie Perzano, I don't know if he's on the line, he's from University of Michigan Med Center, go Wolverines. Of course, you know what, that upsets all my other Big Ten fans that I got out there, so I should not say go Wolverines. But University of Michigan Med Center is a great hospital, one of the top in the country. And I was talking to him about this, and he pointed out, you know, not only is this a NFPA issue, it's a joint commission issue, so that's under regulations. Here's the big thing about this. I don't know if it's the big thing, but it's an interesting point. Is most people don't understand what what the cost is to maintain these things. Again, there's some technology, there's upgrades, right? Building renovations, exit signs have a life. There's a battery life that is a certain amount of time. They may put new exit signs in over a building reno, if you will. But the cost to do this is anywhere from $25 to $50 for the test, right? If you're union labor, you know, you may need two people, one person to go up the ladder, one person to hold the ladder, one person to push the button. There's hidden costs that my guess is that most people don't understand how much they're paid in their labor to do these things, let alone the risk if these the exit signs go down. So let's say you get the cost, if it costs you $25 to do these signs, and because you have a smart exit sign that has sensors in it that reports back the status of those signs, and you can drive that cost down, get a new sign that's a better built sign, has better battery life, longer battery life, so now you extend the life of the sign, better LED lighting, which is 13 years plus floodlights, and then there's a green battery disposal. All of a sudden, these things start adding up. If you're going to replace the signs anyway, why not get something smart, have that connected if the sign goes down for any reason, or at least you have the automated check on it, that, you know what, you don't have to do that same round that you have to do those checks. So the other thing is it has other sensors in there, so there might be other uses. So for instance, it has an occupancy sensor built in. Well, now you take a ubiquitous, how do you say that, Rachel? Ubiquitous asset, turn it into something smart that can do more than just what it's intended to do and have longer life, and then you get information and save labor in these checks. But say you can drive it down to $15 or $12 a sign versus $20, $25 a sign, you automatically save money. So, and there's, again, it's not that much of a stretch, because again, the way the solution's packaged, you get the smart sign, you get the software, you get the tie into Maximo, and more importantly, right, you get the installation that you don't have to worry about any of those things. Okay, let's move on. Number 3, when we were talking, number 3, I'm a little bit ahead of myself. Number 2 is we had to be careful when we were choosing this image, because I said, Rachel, go find a steamy image. Well, you gotta be careful when you search on steamy images, and we, thankfully, Rachel came back with this. Quick backstory here. Let me tell you about my interest in STEAM. It goes back about 7 years. And when an esteemed colleague or / customer, really, dare I say, friend, if he's listening, Bill, I think you're my friend, Bill Studler, who's a facility engineer at Penn State, one of the top Maximo people I know in terms of their use of Maximo, presented on managing steam traps within Maximo. Now, Bill is one of the most knowledgeable people I know in steam system operation, usage, and management of steam systems. He's truly a steam guru, a steam connoisseur, if you will, Rachel. You like that, steam connoisseur?
Yeah.
He knows his steam. I thought that was kind of
He's esteemed in steam.
He's an esteemed steamer. I like that.
There you go.
Yeah, nice. All right, so next time we see him, we'll have to get him a t-shirt that says, I'm an esteemed steamer. Bill created in Maximo a PM plan, a route plan that actually had a proven ROI that saved the university, get this, they got like 8,000, 9,000 steam traps, millions of dollars per year. I think he put there $3 million per year in avoiding energy loss. Now, the theory, if you know steam traps, if you don't know steam traps, one of the things you need to know about steam traps is they fail. Well, all assets will eventually fail, but steam traps fail about 25% of the time. So if you go and what's happening there, when a steam trap fails, you don't really know, there's not a big indicator, and you're losing energy costs. There is energy cost, hard energy costs associated with the steam trap failure. And there's multiple sizes of steam traps. So a small steam trap may cost a little bit of money, big steam trap costs a lot of money. And what Bill did is designed a PM route program to go out and check steam traps, and he was able to calculate the savings. Again, millions of dollars for the university. The thing about it I loved his phrase that he used when it came to steam traps. He called it a low effort, high reward, inspect and replace program. I like that. Again, it kind of goes back to our simplicity and cutting through the complexity, creating a vision for what you're going to get out of that. And again, there were some calculations, but he was able to very clearly demonstrate that there were savings there. Now, Bill's idea is great, right? But there's more that can be done because, look, we said failures happen, guaranteed 25% of the time, and that trap can fail right after it's inspected. Now, that means he could be, if they're on yearly inspections, it could fail right after he inspects, it goes good, but then it could be still in a failure mode for the next year. Excuse me. Now, so if we think about that, there's more to be done. What if we could automate that, right? And here's the thing. In fact, I talked to him like 3 years ago at Maximo World, one of the first ones, and said, hey, what do you think about if we put sensors on your steam traps? And he goes, that's a great idea. But here's the problem. Installing them's a pain. The cost of sensors are kind of high. And the battery life on these things are not that long. So now instead of doing a PM on a steam trap, I got to do a PM on a battery. And so you're really not gaining a whole lot. And I go, man, that makes sense. What we've done is we're working with a solution that is batteryless. Can you say that for me, Rachel?
Batteryless.
Batteryless, right? It generates its own power based on vibration of the minute vibrations. And easy to install. Literally, you can install the sensor with a zip tie in minutes, connect into a hub, and then that connects into software, kind of self-discovery, if you will, and then you connect that into Maximo. So imagine now you get information real time about those steam traps and operation and the throughput and the maintenance of that. And when it fails, it alerts you right away. So even Bill's kind of reimagining his steam trap monitoring processes. Man, not only, maybe instead of doing PM to do steam traps to check them, I do a PM to install these sensors, and then it gets back to his low effort, high reward. He knows that even with the very solid PM program he has, there's more money to be had. So that's project number 2, an easy IoT solution that can be done extremely quickly, low labor, low intensity, low training, and deliver real world results. Okay, got to move fast here. Got one more to cover. Rachel, I have no idea what this is. What is this?
I got this. Platform. So this is platform 9 3/4. The third IoT project that Ray will explain shortly is an industrial IoT platform, much like platform 9 3/4, pictured here for any Harry Potter fans out there. It's the magical gateway at the train station in London, where all the wizardry students use magic to get through the brick wall to the Hogwarts Express, which is the train that takes them to the School of Witchcraft and Wizardry.
Now, we're not saying that we're proponents of witchcraft and wizardry. That's not our point. Yeah, that one caught me off guard there. But I do like the analogy because it seems like wizardry, the magic that happens as a platform. So the first 2 solutions we talked to, we can almost call them nano apps, very purpose-built, specific applications that do a certain thing. Quick to install, quick to reap the benefits. We're going to talk about a platform approach that can give you that same quick to install, quick to realize benefits, but it's a little bit broader, that it is a platform that you can add on multiple use cases as you desire based on what you have available already in your plant. So if we take a look at it, we call this, we'll just call it ThingWorx. We had labeled it connected maintenance for a long time. Maybe you'd seen some of it, but for Maximo users, let me just set the stage here. All that stuff on the left, which is the aggregation of data silos, that has always been a desire for Maximo users to get that into Maximo. When I first started, it was JCI Metasys, building management systems. They wanted that. I want an alert to go into Maximo to create something so that I knew to go work on it. And maybe it's SCADA systems where information was coming from SCADA, because you're collecting all this stuff already. Why can't I get into Maximo? Well, the building management piece, a lot of people did, but they realized that it was sending alarms every 15 seconds and was creating hundreds of work orders. There wasn't a great way to filter that out in Maximo. And then the SCADA systems, well, that recalled often going into reliability or production and messing with their SCADA system like Wonderware or doing some special programming. And nobody wanted them to touch anything. And it's often the case, not to hit on reliability people, but they often don't want their SCADA systems touched. And so that information would stay in there and not make it over to Maximo. So again, the thing we're talking about, it's not that it's brand new, it's an easier way to get information over. So if you think about the resources, and on your plant floor, you have assets that are already pre-sensored. You have PLCs, you have MESs, you have building management systems, things that have information that you're doing manual checks on now, or you don't do any checks on, and when it goes down, it's bad news. So how do we get that into Maximo? We use ThingWorx as a platform for anomaly detection, rule creation, and analytics to help filter what gets from those assets into Maximo. Now, let's talk a little bit about the platform side, because I think, to me, that this is interesting. Again, you have lots of different tasks out there that you're doing, and I'll give you some quick examples that if we could get that information into Maximo, we could extend the life of the asset or lengthen the time of the PM, and thereby reducing the cost of the overall maintenance of an asset, or get somebody to act faster before it's trouble. There's two quick examples I want to give that I think are pretty cool. One is we were with a tier 1 automotive supplier, and we were talking to them about paint guns. They had to paint this auto part that they were producing, and they had a PM to change the gun nozzle every I think it was every 2 weeks they would change that. And whether or not it was bad or not, they would change it out. So these were significant costs. Maybe not at the time, maybe they were $400, $500 paint nozzles, but they would change them out. And what would happen is we asked, well, what happens if you don't change it? Oh, clog, it'll be trouble. Well, how long can it go? I don't know, the manufacturer says 2 weeks or a certain number of hours. Well, we started doing testing and realized that, you know what? If they waited and could sense the flow, and when the flow hit a certain point and then turned that into a work order in Maximo, they could extend the life of those nozzles based on what they were doing and what they were spraying, you know, about, I want to say quadruple the amount of time. So you put that over a period of year, you're saving quite a bit of money based on the number of lines they had and sprayers that they used. Another example, which was interesting, one of my colleagues that I work with, Maddie Hawkins, and she'll be presenting next week, we'll talk about that, is we were going through a plant, and most people have dashboards and sensors and things when they're in a manufacturing plant. We walked by this one dashboard, if you will, and I guess it was their MES system, and there was this big red light flashing. Boop, boop, boop. I don't know, it wasn't really making noise. That was for effect because you can't see it flash. So I'll just say boop, 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 and we go, what is that red light? And our tour guide said, oh, that's up on the 3rd floor. It's probably this overflow tank that's overflowing. And we go, oh, all right, well, what happens? I don't know, if someone notices it, they may go up there, maybe not, and then it overflows, and then we got to call janitorial and we got to clean it up. Well, wait, what if you got a sensor already? What if that was automatically put into Maximo so that you could go catch that issue prior to it happening? And that's what our platform does, is it takes manual tasks or other tasks or information that you have available. It could be, say you do a lubrication analysis, and instead of pouring through the Excel spreadsheets that come through, you port those and put it into our platform and you shoot it into Maximo if it reaches a certain threshold, and then you create work orders after that. We've had customers that had motors that, again, they have sensors and they know the voltage. When the voltage goes down, well, that doesn't matter if it's just once, but if it's 4 or 5 times or it's consistent, that means the motor's bad, senses it, we manage a rule, send it over to Maximo for someone to go make that correction on that motor, replace it. And we've had somebody save a whole batch of product because of that. And the final one that I think is really, really cool, well, there's two. The air filters one, yeah, we talked about if we can manually, manually PMs are done on air filters, and we've seen big industrial air filters where they were changed every 30 days or every 6 or every 2 months. But why not do it based on airflow? Airflow pressure. We can then change it when the air filter needs it. If it's dirtier before the 2 months, great, we get better efficiency. If we can extend the life of that air filter to like 2 months, we might be saving $300 or $400 a pop for every air filter change, extending that life. But one of my favorites is using the platform to deal with COVID, right? That's kind of really cool, where you create a platform that takes his sensors off of an individual has a sensor. You then put that into the platform, and it can denote proximity and how long someone's been around someone else, or how many people are in a particular room, which then can kick off a work order in Maximo that go, okay, this kicks off a PM around sanitization. I don't know if sanitization is a word, or maybe it's even traceability, so that you can go back and see, oh, if someone actually has a positive test, we can go and see all the people they've interacted with that were in, say, a 6-foot distance over the last week or so to see the chain of traceability. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, so with that in mind, we bring this home, Rachel, is simplicity brings clarity. So,
Well, Ray, I have to stop you there. I thought this was supposed to be about IoT and AR. Where's the AR component?
well, okay, that's true. We did say AR, and so I guess I got to give a bonus one here. Is we in AR, augmented reality. Now, in the platform, we actually can have visual gauges come up when you scan an asset. So even though the kind of stats on the running the machine running can't be seen, say pressure or oh gosh, now I can only think of pressure, but it might be the current and all of those things that are being tracked because the asset has it. You can bring that in a visual gauge format, even though those gauges aren't visible on the asset itself. So that's one. Okay, you happy? You can use that as augmented reality. I wasn't going to use this slide, but I guess I'll put it in. Is we also have what we call the Vuforia Chalk. That's an easy to use AR, augmented reality collaboration tool. You know, with knowledge workers staying in at home, but techs being at work, there's this need to collaborate and share information back and forth. So when the work order takes place, well, and a tech needs help and the knowledge worker is away, you can use this tool. I like it as a kind of FaceTime on steroids, but you know, it doesn't have to just work on iOS. It works on Droid, works on anything else. And you can annotate it, draw on it about, okay, here, work on this piece here. This is the valve you want to turn it clockwise, whatever. And those annotations are sticky. So even when you move away, when you come back, it's still there. If you want to know more about that, we've got a great session next week that Maddie Hawkins is going to do. We'll tell you how to get back on that. So, okay, we're right up at the hour, so we need to bring this home to a close. Here's what we wanted to drive home is our point. There are simple solutions out there that can be literally implemented in days. Even the platform, you can connect assets, PLCs, tags in a day and have information flowing into Maximo very quickly to eliminate various tasks that you're doing. And it doesn't create a lot of pressure on the user to do that. So again, answering these three questions: what are we doing? Why are we doing? And where does technology or IoT or whatever it is fit in and fill the gap? Now, if you're interested in any of this stuff, please reach out to Rachel. She'll get you connected to the right people. The steam trap and exit sign things are really cool. The IoT platform is awesome. There's so much that you can do, and it's so easy and straightforward. It's ridiculous. It's kind of the vision that we've always wanted from the Maximo community. And then next week we've got the augmented reality. It's kind of the new must-have solution for maintenance. Maddie Hawkins will be leading that session, and that's next week. And you'll find that on the More channel. On More, we've got Maddie Hawkins coming up next. Okay, Rachel, with that being said, I think we're right up on the hour, and we've used up all our time. So with that, we want to thank everybody. If there's questions, please reach out. We'll be glad to answer and take any questions and address any of the challenges that you might have. Rachel, any closing words?
Thank you all for joining today. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
All right. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.